the driving portion of the vehicle, but what we're going to go over now, and I know it's probably kind of dark on the camera, a lot of times you can't see up in here. Behind my head, above the driver's area, these are what we refer to as the power panel. This is like the main hub of the vehicle. So think of this as like the power panel in your house. If you had a breaker or a wall outlet that tripped in your house, same exact thing is going to happen inside this vehicle. Everything on the power panel is pretty clearly labeled, but the two panels do entirely different things. The first thing first, when we first entered the vehicle on the passenger side, there's a little door right to your left hand or right hand side, and you open that up and there are a couple switches in there. Two of them are labeled chassis disconnect and the other one is labeled coach disconnect. Now those are the master battery switches for the vehicle. If those are not in the on position, I won't be able to start the vehicle. I won't be able to turn on this 12-volt panel over here. So this is the auxiliary coach batteries. This is the chassis batteries. They have a switch for the disconnect. Now when you go to walk away at night, if you're not driving the vehicle, you can turn off that chassis disconnect at the step. And what it's going to ensure is if you leave the headlights on, you leave the key in the on position, you left the radio playing, it's going to turn that off. It's a master kill switch. Now, there are certain circumstances when you park at night where you may need to leave the coach breaker or coach switch in the on position. And I'm going to explain those. But typically for like long periods of storage where you're not worried about keeping the vehicle temperature controlled. I don't know if you're keeping the vehicle parked inside or it's going to be on the outside. If it's inside, you're not worried about temperature control because your building is typically temperature controlled. You can turn off both those switches when you leave and it will prevent any sort of battery draw on the system. Now we still recommend that you plug it in and keep it charged, which I'm going to go over, but that's what they are. So don't panic the first time you come in here and you turn the key and nothing happens. Don't panic the first time you turn on this panel, you turn on the main and you turn on lights and the lights come on. It probably indicates you didn't turn on these little switches I'm going to show you at the step while when we do the walk around. They're clearly labeled, so just don't panic. All right. Now, you can tell that I have my disconnects on because I have a little yellow light here and I have little red lights on my panel. The panel behind my head right here, this says 240 volt AC and it has two large main breakers. They're labeled shore main and generator. So everything on this power panel would be kind of comparable to what you would have in a house. In order for any of this to work, you either need to have the vehicle plugged in or the generator running. Now the panel over here says 12 volt DC. Batteries, automotive batteries, are 12 volts. So everything on this panel runs off the auxiliary batteries. Now I have the vehicle plugged in right now, but I don't have any of the breakers on. So technically the vehicle is off. But you notice I still have lights because the battery system does not rely on the cord. I was at 14 volts, a little bit higher than that when I first shut everything off and we're slowly dropping. Think of these lights right now, this switch I have on as a flashlight. It's going to die. There's nothing charging the batteries. The vehicle's not running, the generator's not running, I don't have the main breaker on. So I can turn on as many things on this 12 volt panel as I want at any time, and they will turn on as long as I have charged batteries. But you'll notice my voltage is starting to drop. Limit your use of this panel if the vehicle's not plugged in or the vehicle's not charging. So if you come in to clean, you have someone who's going to do some janitorial work, you have some papers to drop off, you forgot something inside the vehicle, turn on your coach disconnect at the stairs, turn on your main breaker, turn on the lights you need, do your thing, right? But don't do it for extended amount of times. If you're out here for 4 to 8 hours and you have all the lights on, what's going to happen is this is going to slowly keep dropping, just like it is right now. Once this gets below 12 volts, these items are 12 volt items. They're going to start shutting off depending on what's drawing the most amperage. So you'll just be sitting here and pretty soon your refrigerator, you'll hear a click. And you're going to go, why did the refrigerator shut off? Well, your voltage is too low. So they'll start to die one by one until pretty soon you've drained the batteries. Always, always have something charging the system when you're going to be using this for an extended amount of time. So your options once again, plug the vehicle in, have the vehicle running like you're driving down the road, I could technically start the vehicle, turn this on, have the refrigerator so I can keep my food cold, my medicine cold, etc. But when you get to your site and you shut the vehicle off, you need to probably plug it in or start the generator. Now the power panel looks like a lot, but I like to use a 1 through 4 setup. It's really, really simple. 1 is pick your power source. Either plug it in or start the generator. Now we're plugged in already, so that's too easy for me to show you, right? So we give you the option to have an onboard generator. So up here you'll see it says Cummins Atlantic start, stop, and preheat. We'll check engine light and an hour meter. In order to start the generator, it's as simple as this. If it's been sitting for an extended amount of time, it's been there for 2 days and you haven't started the generator, it's extremely cold outside, you can press the stop preheat, and if you were close enough to the generator, hopefully they started it from inside, you can actually hear the generator kind of pulse. It's going to kick the fuel pump on, it's going to turn on the glow plugs, and it's going to try to circulate some of the fuel and warm up the glow plugs. And then what you do, you press and hold start. That's it, the generator's running. So step 1, start the generator or plug the vehicle in. There is an hour meter on the generator. It's basically like your odometer for your vehicle when driving. There is an owner's manual that tells you when to do your oil changes. It tells you when to check the air filters, when to flush the vehicle, the generator. Follow that owner's manual and you won't have a problem. Now this generator does run off the same main tank of the vehicle. So you have an 80-gallon fuel tank. This will run until you have about 1/4 of a tank and it will automatically shut down. Now if it does automatically shut down, you basically just ran the generator out of fuel. So keep your tank full as much as possible at all times. Don't let either side of this run out of fuel. Otherwise, the priming process of a diesel is not as fun as just filling it up with more fuel. It doesn't work like that. So that was step 1. We started the generator. Step 2, turn on the corresponding main breaker that you want to use. So if you're plugged in and that's all you have, you'll make sure that this little slider is slid to the side and you'll turn on shoreline. If you're in the middle of a parking lot and you don't have a shoreline available and your generator is running, you'll flip up generator. Now you see I have 2 little lights on right now. Typically, it will not look like that. It will look like this. You'll have 1 light on. The reason that this little slider is here, I had 2 power sources available right now, right? If I were to flip both of them up, this is rated for 50 amps, this is rated for 100 amps. I now am powering the vehicle with 150 amps. This thing will melt to the ground. So if this little guy ever breaks off or someone pries it off, it falls off for some reason, contact us immediately and we'll send you a new one so that you don't turn on both breakers at once. So step 1, pick your power source. Step 2, flip up the main breaker. You should get 120 volts on the panel. This little switch here is a test switch. It says line 1, line 2. This is line 1, this is line 2. This is a combination of both. It's hard to explain. These both make 240 volts. When they come into the power panel, they split off. They're called different legs or lines. Leg 1, leg 2, line 1, line 2. This, when I have it flipped to the left, displays the voltage on line 1. This, when I have it flipped to the right, displays the voltage on line 2. Now you notice it just jumped a little bit, but didn't really change. That's how it should always be. If you were ever plug in the vehicle or start the generator and you do this little test before you turn on a bunch of breakers, and this one says 60 volts, and I flip it to the other side and it says 150 volts, you have some sort of voltage error, some sort of issue. You need to shut the vehicle down immediately and get it looked at by an electrician. It means somewhere down the line, your wires are messed up, something is wrong. Don't ever try to turn things on if you don't have the correct voltage. Now this typically won't happen unless you plug into an incorrect power source. And I'm going to go over that little warning when you go outside. Only plug into something that you have a certified electrician inspect and make sure it is the correct voltage for this vehicle. All right? So there's a label outside that tells you that correct voltage before you even plug it in, and we'll go over that. So that was step 3. Well, step 3, Step 3, turn on the converter battery charger. Now you hear the little buzzy noise like a charger going off. My voltage just jumped back up on the 12 volt side. That'll slowly go away as it energizes. You see that we have 13 volts now. The lights got a little bit brighter. That was step 3. We're trying to always make sure that the batteries are getting charged. Now step 4, turn on everything else you want to turn on. They are clearly labeled, and there are certain things that you should avoid if you're unsure of. So, front room AC, middle forward AC, front room receptacles, rear room receptacles. Receptacles are just plugs in the wall. Front room exam table, which you don't have right now, but it turns on the outlet right by the exam table where it will go. Microwave oven, you hear a beep. Power awning outside. This is one of the few breakers. You can have this thing, generator running, and this power panel all lit up. This is one of the few breakers that you want to turn off when you're driving down the road if you have the generator running. There's no reason for you to have it on. We don't want to risk that you took it to a shop, they worked on the awning, they wired it backwards, you turn on the power awning, you're driving on the road and it comes out. So, anytime you're driving and the generator's running, don't use that one. Compartment heater, if it's below freezing, you can turn on a little automatic compartment heater that keeps the plumbing system warm in the compartments. Middle room AC, rear room AC. Now here's the one I'm warning you about. Water heater. From Farber, we don't fill the water heater up. We test it, we drain it, we winterize your entire vehicle. There's no water in the actual water heater. If the water heater if it's done correctly, someone should have left it unplugged so that we don't burn this thing up if we accidentally turn this breaker on. Do not turn the water heater breaker on until you've filled this vehicle with water and you made sure the water heater had water in it. If you turn this on and there is none in it,